Hey there, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about a tricky and emotional topic, the signs that a woman might be cheating. When a woman cheats, she might say certain things that can reveal her guilt, anxiety, or attempt to distract you from the truth. These signs can be pretty subtle at first, but once you know what to look for, they can give you a lot of clues. By understanding these signals, you'll have a clearer sense of what's going on. And as Stoicism teaches us, while we can always control the actions of others, we can control how we respond, approaching situations with calm, awareness, and clarity. Let's take a look at 9 things a woman might say if she's cheating, so you can recognize them and know how to respond. Before we dive in, take a moment to subscribe if you're ready to transform how you handle relationships using the power of Stoicism. Every video is a step toward mastering your mindset and building stronger, more meaningful connections. Let's dive in. Know when you're being paranoid. All right, let's dive into one of the first things you might say. If you start questioning her behavior, you're being paranoid. This is such a classic response. It's like a defense mechanism, designed to shift the focus away from her and onto you. It's meant to make you second-guess your own instincts and feelings, to make you doubt yourself. And we've all been there, right? When something just doesn't feel right. But when we try to address it, we're met with a defensive remark like that. Here's the thing. If you've noticed some odd behavior or inconsistency in what she's saying, and when you bring it up, she quickly snaps back with, "You're just being paranoid," or "You're imagining things," it's more than just a random response. It's a huge red flag. It's as if she's trying to turn the tables, making you question your own reality. Think about it. You've been paying attention to the little details. Maybe she's been staying out late, not answering texts, or her stories don't quite add up. But when you bring it up, she dismisses it with that phrase, "You're being paranoid." Let's paint a picture here. Imagine you've noticed that she's been coming home later than usual, or she's become a bit more distant. So you ask her, "Hey, why are you staying so late at work lately?" And she immediately snaps, "You're always questioning me. Why can't you just trust me?" You start to feel like you're the one in the wrong for even asking. Suddenly you're the problem, not the situation that's her. Trying to deflect the conversation and avoid addressing the actual issue. This is where the wisdom of Stoicism can really help. The Stoics taught us the importance of not letting emotions take over our reactions when something doesn't feel right. Instead of letting anger or fear cloud your judgment, step back and try to stay grounded. Don't let her turn your doubts into self-doubt. Focus on the facts and remember your feelings are valid. If you're noticing things that don't add up, it's okay to trust your instincts and question them, even if it makes you uncomfortable. The Stoics would say that we can't control her actions, but we can control how we respond. Don't let her accusations make you doubt your own clarity and perception. This isn't about jumping to conclusions, but rather about staying clear-headed and understanding when something isn't right. So next time you hear you're being paranoid, remember it's not always about you. Pay attention to what's being said and what's not being said. Keep your calm and take a step back to reassess the situation, with the calm wisdom that the Stoics would encourage us to embrace. No, two, we're just friends. All right, let's move on to another classic phrase you might hear. If something's off, we're just friends. Now we've all been there, right? When you've noticed her spending a little too much time with someone. Maybe someone new at work or someone from her past. And it just doesn't sit right with you. You try to bring it up, and what do you get? That casual dismissal, "Oh, we're just friends." It's as if that one little sentence is supposed to completely put your mind at ease. But deep down, you can feel something's not adding up. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine this. You've been noticing her texting a certain person all the time. At first, you brush it off. But then it starts to feel a little excessive. Late-night texts constantly on her phone, even during moments you used to share. So you finally ask her about it. And what's her response? "Oh, it's just a friend from work. Nothing to worry about." But when she says this, she gets defensive or worse. Tries to shut you down with an attitude. Something about her reaction feels a little off. Now this is where things start to get tricky. What she's doing here is downplaying the relationship, making it sound innocent and harmless, almost like you're overreacting. But the truth is, if she's spending a lot of time with this friend, without offering a solid explanation, or worse, if she's trying to hide or be secretive about it, that's a red flag. You're not asking for details because you want to be controlling. You're asking because you care and because things don't seem right. And when you're met with defensive That's when the alarm bells should start going off. It's important to remember that in relationships, transparency and trust are the foundation. If she's acting secretive or dismissive about this friendship, it might be her way of keeping things hidden from you. And honestly, no one likes feeling like they're being kept in the dark, especially when it involves someone else. Now let's bring in a little Stoic wisdom here. The Stoics believed in maintaining control over our own emotions and responses rather than letting others dictate how we feel. So if you find yourself feeling uneasy about this friendship, don't ignore those feelings just because you're being told to calm down. The Stoics taught us to examine situations from a place of logic and reason, not just our initial emotional reaction. It's okay to trust your instincts, but do so calmly. Don't let anger or fear cloud your judgment. Take a step back and assess the situation with clarity. Think of it this way. Imagine you're facing a storm, and you can either let the wind blow you around, or you can stand firm, grounded in your own understanding. That's what Stoicism teaches us, to stay firm and centered, no matter how much chaos is going on around us. So when you hear we're just friends, don't rush to conclusions, but also don't ignore your gut feeling. Take the time to reflect and calmly observe what's actually happening. Keep your calm, just like the Stoics would recommend. And don't let defensive phrases cloud your clarity. In the end, it's all about finding balance. Trust your instincts, but approach the situation with wisdom and understanding. And remember, a healthy relationship thrives on trust, openness, and respect, not on secrecy and defensiveness. Number 3, I need space. Okay, let's dive into another common phrase you might hear that can be a serious red flag. I need space now. I know this one's tricky, right? It sounds innocent enough on the surface, maybe even reasonable. Sometimes everyone needs a little time for themselves, but when it comes out of nowhere, especially when things seemed fine between you two, it can feel like a gut punch. Picture this: you've been in a steady, loving relationship for months. Things have been good, no big arguments, no huge issues, you're enjoying each other's company. Life's moving forward, and then one day she suddenly says, I think we need space to figure things out. Just like that. And you're left there thinking, wait, what happened? What changed? You didn't see it coming, and you start wondering where all of this is coming from. Now here's the kicker. Sometimes this need for space is less about needing to breathe, and more about needing room for someone else. If she's pulling away emotionally, becoming distant, or suddenly wanting more alone time, it could be her way of juggling 2 relationships. Without getting caught, it's almost like she's creating this gap, so she doesn't have to feel the weight of her guilt while she's entertaining another connection. It's a smooth, subtle shift, like a slow withdrawal from the emotional bond you two shared. And trust me, it's not just about her needing time to figure things out. There's often more going on behind the scenes. Let's take a real-life example to bring this to life. Imagine you're having a great evening. Everything's normal, you two are watching a show, talking, laughing. Then, out of nowhere, she says, I think we need some space. I need to figure out what I want. You pause, you feel this little voice in your head asking, wasn't everything fine just a few hours ago? What's really happening here? The sudden change in behavior can be a huge warning sign. If there hasn't been a major issue between you two yet, she's pulling away. It may mean she's already emotionally involved elsewhere. I want you to really think about this. In relationships, especially in long-term ones, space can sometimes be healthy. It can help both people reflect, recharge, or just grow as individuals. But when that space comes out of nowhere, and especially if it's being used as an excuse to create distance, without real explanation, it's worth paying attention to. It's like she's trying to escape from something she doesn't want to face. Now here's where we can tie in some Stoic wisdom. The Stoics taught us that our emotions, while natural, should not control us. They emphasize the importance of maintaining calm and clarity, even when things seem uncertain. So when faced with something like this, it's essential not to panic or react impulsively. Instead of letting emotions like anger or confusion take over, take a step back and reflect what is actually happening here. Is this a moment of personal reflection, or is there something deeper going on? The Stoics believe that by controlling our own reactions, we gain strength, and when we face situations that challenge us, like hearing I need space unexpectedly, we must practice that same self-control. We don't jump to conclusions based on fear. Instead, we approach the situation with calmness and clarity. Think of it this way, just like the Stoics would advise. Don't let external events disturb your inner peace, whether she needs space for the right reasons or because she's involved in something else. Your response should remain grounded. Ask yourself, what is the best way to handle this with wisdom? Sometimes giving space can be the right move for you too. Time to reflect, gather your thoughts, and make decisions from a place of clear understanding, rather than emotional chaos. At the end of the day, space should never be a tool for avoiding the truth. Healthy relationships are built on honesty, and if there's a shift that feels wrong, trust your instincts. Take the time to really evaluate what's happening, but do so with the steady hand of someone who isn't driven solely by emotion, someone who can approach life with the clarity and resilience that the Stoics embraced. So if you ever hear, "I need space," and it feels out of place or sudden, don't just ignore it, reflect. Maintain your inner peace and approach the situation with the calm wisdom of a Stoic. Your clarity might just help you navigate these tricky waters. Know before you deserve better than me. All right, let's talk about another phrase that may send some serious warning bells ringing. You deserve better than me. Have you ever heard this one? Maybe out of nowhere in the middle of a conversation. Maybe you're talking about your future together, planning dreams and making promises. And suddenly she drops this line on you. It's jarring, right? It makes you stop in your tracks and think, what's going on here? Now let's break it down. This phrase is often used when someone feels guilty, and in this case, very guilty. It's almost like a veiled confession, one that's indirect and wrapped up in self-doubt. When a woman says, "You deserve better than me," it might sound like she's being self-critical or insecure. And sure, sometimes that could be true. But more often than not, it's an emotional defense mechanism. A way of communicating guilt without actually saying, "I've done something wrong." Imagine this, you're sitting down having a deep, meaningful conversation about your relationship. Things seem pretty good, right? No major issues, no big fights. Just the regular ebb and flow of life. Then out of nowhere she says, "I don't know if I'm good enough for you. You deserve better than me." What do you do with that? It feels off. Doesn't it? There wasn't a build-up to this? You weren't expecting it, and it doesn't quite fit the situation. Here's where it gets interesting. This is often a subtle way of her telling you that something's wrong, something she may not be ready to confess yet. If she's been hiding her infidelity, this phrase can be a way of her expressing guilt without directly owning up to her actions. It's like she's acknowledging that she's been betraying your trust, but doesn't have the courage to face it head-on. Instead of directly admitting what she's done, she gives you this cryptic line that's loaded with emotion. Let me paint a picture. Let's say you're talking about your future plans together. Maybe talking about buying a house, traveling, or growing old together. And then out of nowhere, she says, "I don't think I'm good enough for you. You deserve someone better." You feel the air shift. The words don't match the tone of the conversation. It's like she's pulling away emotionally, hinting that something deeper is going on, but doesn't want to come right out and say it. It can be confusing, but here's the thing. When guilt is weighing on someone, it often leads them to act in strange ways. Instead of coming clean, she might distance herself emotionally with phrases like this. It's almost as if she's trying to soften the blow for both of you before the truth comes out. Now let's bring in some Stoic wisdom. The Stoics taught us that life is full of challenges, and that we cannot always control the actions of others. What we can control, however, is how we respond when faced with something like this, an unexpected comment that throws us off balance. It's important to practice the Stoic virtues of clarity and self-control. Instead of jumping to conclusions or letting emotions take over, we can choose to approach the situation with calmness and rationality. The Stoics believed in accepting the things we cannot control, with grace and wisdom. So if you hear something like, "You deserve better than me," and it raises questions in your mind, instead of letting confusion or anger rule, try to pause, reflect, assess the situation from a place of calm. Ask yourself, what is the best course of action here? What do I need to understand about this moment? You see, in the face of uncertainty, Stoicism teaches us to hold on to our inner peace. We should approach even the most emotional situations with a mindset that allows us to think clearly and make decisions based on reason, not just impulse. Whether her comment is a sign of guilt or a moment of self-doubt, the way you respond will shape the outcome. This doesn't mean ignoring the red flags or letting things slide. Not at all, it means choosing your reaction wisely. If she's feeling guilty, it's not about letting her off the hook. It's about creating a space where you can have a truthful, calm conversation. When we approach these moments with emotional clarity, we give ourselves the opportunity to understand the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. So if you hear the words "you deserve better than me," listen carefully, and instead of reacting out of anger or confusion, take a moment to reflect. Understand that this phrase could be a sign that something deeper is happening. Beneath the surface, and with the calm perspective of a Stoic, address it with patience, clarity, and the wisdom to know how to move forward. No 5, why don't you trust me? This one. Why don't you trust me? It's a phrase that can make your heart skip a beat. Isn't it you ask a simple question? Maybe something as innocent as why she's been acting distant, or why her behavior has changed. Instead of answering, she turns it around on you and hits you with, "Why don't you trust me?" It's like a punch to the gut, because now suddenly you're the one on trial for questioning her. This response can feel manipulative. She's not addressing your concerns. Instead, she's shifting the blame onto you for being suspicious. It's a tactic used to deflect, to make you feel guilty for doubting her. By accusing you of mistrust, she makes you second-guess your own instincts. Suddenly, you're questioning whether you are the one in the wrong, and she's in the clear. But let's slow down for a moment. Think about it when someone is behaving suspiciously. It's natural to feel uncertain. It's normal to ask questions. But when those questions are met with deflection, rather than explanation, it should raise some red flags. For example, if you ask why she's been acting distant lately, and her immediate reaction is to throw the blame back at you with, "Why don't you trust me well?" That's a sign she's trying to cover something up. She doesn't want to confront your real concerns. So instead, she makes you feel like you're the one overreacting. Now let's tie this back to Stoicism. The Stoics taught us the importance of maintaining control over our own thoughts and reactions regardless of how others behave. When faced with a situation like this, it's crucial to remain calm and centered. Instead of reacting emotionally or getting defensive, we can use the principles of Stoicism to navigate the situation with clarity and composure. A Stoic approach might look like this. You've noticed something that feels off, and instead of letting her question your judgment or making you feel guilty, you take a step back. You understand that her attempt to shift the blame is just a distraction from the real issue. You can choose not to engage in an emotional back and forth. Instead, you can calmly express your concerns and invite an open conversation without feeling manipulated. Remember, a Stoic doesn't let external circumstances disturb their inner peace. You cannot control how she reacts, but you can control how you respond. By staying grounded, you not only avoid being swept up in emotional turmoil, but you also protect your sense of self and your ability to see the situation clearly. So the next time you hear, "Why don't you trust me?" don't let it throw you off course. Pause, reflect, and take a moment to check in with your own feelings. Are your concerns valid? Are you reacting out of anger? Or are you simply trying to understand the truth? By staying calm, you give yourself the space to respond wisely, not just emotionally. All right, before we jump back in, if you're finding this helpful, hit that like button. It helps YouTube share this with more men who need it, and it keeps the content coming. It's quick, free, and it makes a real difference. Thanks, let's get back to it. Now 6, you're always busy. Have you ever been hit with the "you're always busy" line? It's one of those comments that can leave you feeling guilty, almost like you're being accused of neglecting her. If you've noticed something's off in the relationship, and when you ask, she responds with, "You've been so busy lately, I barely see you anymore," it's possible she's trying to shift the blame onto you. This is a classic deflection technique when things aren't going well between you two, especially if she's been acting distant or secretive. She might try to turn the spotlight on your actions. Instead of addressing her own, she's not taking responsibility for what's happening. Instead, she's blaming your work, your schedule, or your life in general. For example, if you've been working long hours or dealing with a busy period in your life, it's natural that she might feel neglected. But if this becomes her excuse for her own behavior, it's a clear sign that she's trying to justify what she's doing. It's like she's telling you, "I did this because you didn't give me enough attention." Now let's tie this to Stoicism. The Stoics believed that we can't always control external circumstances, but we can always control how we respond to them. If she's using your business as an excuse for her actions, it's important not to get caught up in guilt or defensiveness. Instead, stay centered and examine the situation calmly. A Stoic would approach this with self-control. Instead of feeling overwhelmed or reacting emotionally, take a moment to reflect on your own actions and whether your busy schedule is impacting the relationship. Then calmly express your feelings and invite an open conversation. Stay grounded in your truth and don't allow her to manipulate the situation. To avoid responsibility, remember, life will always throw us challenges, whether it's work, personal goals, or anything else. But how we handle them is what truly defines us. Don't let guilt or misplaced blame cloud your judgment. Stay true to your path and your values, no matter what others might say. No, 7, it's not what it looks like. We've all been there, walking in on a situation that doesn't sit right with us. Maybe you find her texting someone, or perhaps she's having a private conversation with another guy. When you approach her, you get the classic line, "It's not what it looks like." Now, if you've heard this before, you probably know that's a red flag. It's her first instinct to downplay everything, to brush aside your concerns, and make you feel like you're overreacting. Let's think about it for a second. If you walk in on her acting suspicious, or see something that doesn't quite add up, and her immediate response is, "It's not what it looks like," there's a good chance she's trying to avoid facing the truth. It's an easy way to deflect and avoid having a real conversation about what's going on. For example, if you catch her talking privately with another guy, and she quickly dismisses it with, "We're just talking but can't explain why it's so secretive," it's more likely she's trying to cover up something. She doesn't want you to know. From a Stoic perspective, this moment is all about maintaining your composure. The Stoics taught us not to get caught up in emotional reactions or distractions. When you hear those words, instead of getting swept up in the confusion or allowing her to shift the focus, take a deep breath, recognize that this is a moment of uncertainty, something you can't immediately control. What you can control is how you respond. By staying calm and collected, you give yourself the space to assess the situation more clearly. Don't let her brush it off with a vague excuse. Ask the right questions, and if her answers are evasive, don't let that shake you. Just like the Stoics emphasized, focus on your ability to respond with integrity, rather than letting someone else's actions dictate your emotions. In times like this, keeping your sense of self and staying grounded is the true measure of strength. Number 8, you're imagining things. This is a classic line that can feel like a punch to the gut. Imagine you're bringing up something that's been bothering you, something that just doesn't seem right. You ask her why she's been distant or why things have changed, and she quickly responds with, "You're imagining things." Now, this might sound innocent at first, but it's actually a form of gaslighting, a tactic meant to make you doubt your own feelings and reality. This is where things get tricky. She doesn't just dismiss your concerns, she makes you question yourself, your perception of what's been happening. It's like she's telling you that you're crazy for even thinking something is off. For example, you notice she's been texting late at night, or her mood has shifted, and when you ask about it, she says there's nothing wrong. You're just imagining things. If this becomes a pattern where every time you express your feelings, she brushes them off as figments of your imagination, that's a major red flag from a Stoic perspective. This is a moment to ground yourself. The Stoics believe that external events, like someone denying your reality, are beyond your control. What is in your control is how you respond. Rather than letting her words get under your skin, take a step back, reflect on your own observations and emotions. The Stoics taught us to maintain clarity, not letting the confusion or dishonesty of others throw us off course. Stay true to your perception. Stay grounded in your own sense of reality, and trust your own judgment. If something feels off, trust yourself to follow through and seek the truth. Number 9, I don't know what I want anymore. You know that gut feeling when something just doesn't sit right. Maybe things were fine between you two. Everything seemed normal, but then out of nowhere, she says, "I don't know what I want anymore." It's a phrase that can throw you off. It's almost like she's putting the brakes on the relationship and suddenly questioning everything. If you've noticed her pulling away emotionally, this could be her way of distancing herself to justify her actions, especially if she's already involved with someone else. At first, it might sound like a cry for help or confusion, but deep down, it often means she's already made up her mind about something or someone else. For example, if she's been distant or not as affectionate and then says, I don't know if I want to be in this relationship anymore. It's not just about her not knowing what she wants. It's a sign she might be emotionally checked out. Now, this can be hard to process, but in those moments, take a step back and reflect. Stoicism teaches us that we can't control others' feelings or actions, but we can control our own reactions. It's tempting to get caught up in the chaos of her uncertainty, but focus on what you need in the situation. Stay grounded in your values, and don't let her emotional turmoil push you into a place of self-doubt. The Stoics believe that our true strength lies in clarity of mind, not in being swayed by the confusion of others. So when she says she doesn't know what she wants, don't lose yourself in the uncertainty. Trust in your own judgment and move forward with confidence. Wrapping it up, recognizing these small phrases and behaviors can be key to understanding if a woman is being unfaithful. Cheating is never easy to deal with, but noticing these signs can help you handle the situation with more clarity. And confidence, always remember, trust and communication are the foundation of any healthy relationship. If you spot these red flags, it might be time to sit down and have a serious conversation. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe. For more insights on relationships and human psychology, give us a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment. If you've noticed any of these signs in your own experiences, stay strong, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next video.